The most powerful people in any room are usually the ones speaking the least. While everyone else is trying to be heard, they stay calm, controlled, and somehow they command the most respect without saying much. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice something interesting. They're not ignored. They're not overlooked. In fact, when they do speak, everyone listens. Not because they said more, but because they didn't need to. Most people believe that being respected means being expressive, vocal, and constantly proving their point. They think the more they explain themselves, the more others will understand their value. But in reality, this behavior often creates the opposite effect. You might have experienced this without even noticing. You're in a conversation, trying to contribute, adding more details, clarifying your ideas, yet people interrupt you, overlook what you say, or quickly move on. It feels subtle, but the message is clear. It's not always obvious, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because from your perspective, you're doing everything right. You're engaged, you're contributing, you're trying to be understood. But from the outside, the perception is completely different. The truth is, the way you present yourself communicates far more than your actual words. When you feel the need to constantly explain, justify, or validate your position, it signals something deeper, a lack of perceived certainty. And people don't respond to effort, they respond to presence. The critical mistake most people make is believing that more communication leads to more respect. They assume that if they just explain things clearly enough, speak confidently enough, or provide enough detail, others will naturally recognize their value. But this mindset quietly undermines their authority. Because when you over-explain, you're not just sharing information, you're revealing uncertainty. Every extra sentence, every unnecessary clarification, subtly signals that you're seeking approval rather than owning your position. And people can feel that, even if they can't explain why. Imagine two people in the same situation. One speaks clearly, briefly, and then stops. The other continues, adds more context, repeats themselves, tries to make sure everyone agrees. Who do you think appears more confident? Who seems more in control? The difference is not intelligence, it's perception. Think about it. The individuals who naturally command respect rarely rush to fill silence. They don't feel the need to defend every point or justify every decision. Their communication is measured, intentional, and often minimal. And because of that, their words carry more weight. On the other hand, when someone speaks too much, they dilute their own message. What could have been perceived as strong and decisive becomes scattered and less impactful. The listener stops focusing on the meaning and starts filtering out the noise. There's also a deeper psychological dynamic at play. When you constantly try to prove yourself, you position others as the judges of your value. You unconsciously give away control of the interaction. Instead of being seen as someone with authority, you become someone asking to be accepted. And the moment you seek validation, you lose leverage. So the question becomes, how do you shift this without forcing it? The answer isn't in saying more, it's in changing how and when you speak. The first principle is controlled response. Most people react instantly, trying to keep the flow going, but power often comes from restraint. When you pause, even for a second, you signal control, and people notice that. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence, so they rush to fill it. But the moment you don't, you separate yourself instantly. You show that you're not reacting, you're deciding. The second principle is verbal precision. Say less, but make it count. Strip your message down to its core. No extra explanation, no unnecessary detail. Just clarity and intention. There's a difference between speaking and being heard. The more you talk, the more your message gets diluted. But when you're precise, people remember what you say. The third principle is strategic silence. Silence creates pressure, and pressure creates presence. Silence creates tension, and tension creates focus. People start paying attention not because you demanded it, but because they feel it. When you stop filling every gap, others begin to adjust to you. That's when the dynamic shifts. Add to that emotional control, a calm tone, a steady response, no overreaction. That alone signals authority. And finally, timing. Not everything needs to be said immediately. The right words at the right moment carry far more weight than constant talking. Most people will understand this, but never apply it. They'll go back to talking too much, explaining too much, trying too hard, and nothing will change. But the few who actually use this will be seen differently almost instantly. At a certain point, you start to realize something. Real power has very little to do with how much you say. It comes from how you carry yourself when nothing needs to be proven. When you stop chasing validation, people begin to notice you differently, not because you demanded attention, but because your presence holds it. And that's when respect becomes automatic, not forced, not requested, but given. Because you're no longer competing for attention, you're operating above it. And once you understand this, you don't need to convince anyone of your value. The way you move, the way you respond, and the way you hold silence will do that for you. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people don't. So if this changed the way you see power and presence, take a second to like the video. It helps this message reach the right people. And if you want to develop this level of control and respect, this channel is built for that.